we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of January, and my February TBR is right over here. So those are the two things we're going to be talking about in today's video. Also, hi, hello, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michaela. I love to read and I love to talk about all things books. So let's go ahead and let's dive into the books. The first book that I read, January 1st, 2025, it was my first read of the new year, and I love it. It was a 5-star read for me. It's Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is, I believe, the fifth book in the Throne of Glass series. I started the Throne of Glass series early in 2024. It took me a while to get through the first 3. I didn't love the first 3 books. It was kind of a drag for me to get through, and I just wasn't super motivated to pick them up. It didn't grip me the same way that ACOTAR did, but now being through the series, not fully, but now being a few books into the series, I understand that this is not a romance forward book. This is kind of romance as a subplot, and then more romance comes in the later books. It is more of a fantasy forward series, which I love. The payoff after getting through the first 3 books, the payoff once you get to books 4, 5, 6, 7, it's so worth it. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. This one in particular was so action-packed from start to finish. It was just, oh my God, it was so good. I also loved the romance payoff in this one. We waited all of book 4, which I loved book 4, which is the one before this, Heir of Fire. I loved Heir of Fire. That's actually the book that really made me like fall in love with the series. The first 3, as I said, wasn't a huge fan of. I still rated most of them, I think 3.5 or 4 stars. Heir of Fire, I rated 4.5 or 5 stars. I loved Heir of Fire, but Queen of Shadows, this was an easy 5-star. I could not put the book down. I genuinely and wholeheartedly loved this. Then it took me the rest of the month of January to do the tandem read. So these are books 6 and 7 in the Throne of Glass series. I love these books. I love the tandem read with my whole heart. I just had so much fun reading books this way. I've never done a tandem read before, so it was just such a cool way to be in this world, but you were in 2 different places on the same timeline. So these characters were over here in this land, these characters were over here in this land, and it's taking place at the same time, and you learn so many important things that I know are going to be coming to a head in the last book of the series. But I loved all of the characters. I'm so invested in every single major character and sub-character's story. I love just the fantasy elements of this too. It's just, oh my God, it was so good. I gave, obviously, sorry if this wasn't obvious, both of these are 5 stars. The tandem reading experience, 5 stars. Empire of Storms, 5 stars. Tower of Dawn, 5 stars. Easy. I cried pretty hard finishing up Empire of Storms. I didn't cry after the end of Tower of Dawn, but this one, I should have known. The last 100 pages of a Sarah J. Maas book are going to get me every single time. I should have mentally and emotionally prepared for that, but it was so good. I can't say much more about the plot of this story because it's knee deep into a very long series, but I'm very excited to read the last book / kind of sad because I don't want to leave this world. Okay, some other books that I read in the month of January. I also read and listened to Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. This is a book that I saw recommended by Chris and Mads on YouTube. I believe Smitty talked about it as well. I love following both of those creators. I took their recommendation and decided to download the audiobook for this one and read the physical book. I really love the way that Matthew McConaughey structured his memoir. I wouldn't say it's self-help. Well, it's kind of self-help, but it's more lessons I learned along the way. Here's what happened in my life. Here's my journey. Here's what I took away from it. And I hope that it can help you too. I just really love the way he laid this book out. It was such a fun read. It was really inspiring at times. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would highly recommend the audiobook because Matthew McConaughey narrates it himself. And I bought the physical book because there were so many things that I wanted to underline and kind of highlight throughout it. So I did end up buying the physical book. And it's just a great memoir and kind of self-development, self-help story. I really enjoyed it. In terms of ratings, I don't rate memoirs, so I will not be giving this a star rating, but I do recommend it. And another memoir that I listened to in the month of January is The Many Lives of Mama Love. Whew. This is an incredible memoir. One of the most gripping memoirs I have ever read. I was listening to this solely on audio at first, and after hearing her read the first page, I was like, wait a minute, I need to buy this book, because I was hooked immediately after the first page. She talks about how reading was her first addiction, and I just resonated with that entire first chapter. I was like, yep, I need to buy this physical book, and I'm so glad I did. This is a story about a mother who battles and struggles with addiction, and because of her drug addiction, it winds her up getting into jail, and it really highlights the prison system, getting out of prison, what the parole system looks like, a lot of the injustices kind of wrapped up within that. And it's a hard read at times. There's certain things that she does in her life that are hard to read and listen to, but it really is just a story of redemption and hope. And I just found it incredibly gripping, inspiring. I was completely enthralled in this story, and I highly, highly recommend it. And last but not least, this was the final book that I read in the month of January, The Let Them Theory. This is one that I listened to on audio for the majority of it and then have the physical book. This is a self-help personal development book by Mel Robbins. She is someone who I personally love listening to. I love her podcast, and I just like her kind of no-nonsense approach to self-help. She's very straightforward, pretty blunt, but I like that approach when it comes to self-help. It doesn't feel corny, in my opinion. I had read, though, by Mel Robbins, I read The 5-Second Rule back when it came out years and years ago, and I really liked that. So I wanted to listen to this one because I like the sound of her voice. That sounds weird, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. And funny enough, I had started this book a few days before I was let go from my corporate job that I had been working at the past 5.5 years. I was not expecting it. We had a mass wave of layoffs. It's been a really emotional and hard 2 weeks now that it's been post being let go, but it's interesting how this book came out right before that happened, this major life change for me. And it's just funny how life works out sometimes. And I didn't realize how much I was going to need this book until, that major life change happened and I was let go from my job. So this really helped me get through that mentally, emotionally, and just I needed a lot of the things that she was talking about, especially chapter 4. If you are a pathological people pleaser, in the wise words of Taylor Swift, that's one of her lyrics from her song. If you are a type A, firstborn child, perfectionist to a fault, your whole life is your job, you give everything to your job, and something like this happens where you get let go from a job and never saw it coming, it can really crush your confidence. It can just really mess with your mind. At least it has for me. So I'm really, really grateful that I read this book when I did. I also, with all my personal development self-help books, I like to write in the first page. I'll typically write what season of life I'm in when I'm listening to this for the first time, and I'll date it, because I typically like to reread self-help books every 3 to 5 to 10 years. So I think it's going to be interesting when I go back to read this in 3 years from now, 5 years from now. It's going to be interesting to see what my takeaways are then versus now. So all that to say, I gave this 5 stars. I really think too it was a me thing and that I needed this book and it came at the perfect time. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Now we are going to dive into my February TBR. The first two books that I want to read and that I am actually currently reading, they are for my book club. I have a book club on Patreon. I will post a link down below, but I post to my Patreon twice a week. I do a weekly reading update / life update every Sunday. And then every Thursday I do a chatty get ready with me and I talk about different topics like getting laid off from my job, different insecurities that I have. I just talked about that in my last one. I talk about things like Taylor Swift, Harry Potter, favorite books, favorite music, favorite series. I talk about TV shows. Everything and anything is talked about in those chatty get ready with me's. So there's exclusive content on there, plus my book club. So the two books that we chose to read for my book club, you can choose either book. I wanted to be able to give multiple genres just in case you're not a fantasy reader or you're not a romance or contemporary fiction reader. I wanted to give two different options every month. You can absolutely read both of them or you can choose either one. So our choices and selections for the month of February are The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This was my January book of the month choice and selection. So when I realized that this was coming out a little bit later in January, I wanted to read this with my book club for the month of February, and there's still time to join. The second book for our book club, Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I love the sprayed edges. It makes me so happy. This will be the second book that we are reading for my book club. This is the third book in the series, the Fourth Wing series, and I am so excited about this. Although I'm kind of regretting not doing the reread of Iron Flame before this. I really think I should have, because I'm just a few chapters in right now. I just started this, but we will be discussing it with the book club at the end of the month of February. There's some characters that have been brought up that I'm like, I don't remember you. It's like that Kiki Palmer meme where it's like, if this man was walking down the street, I don't know who this man is. I'm sorry to this man. That's how I feel with a lot of these characters. So kind of regretting not doing the Iron Flame reread, but I'm still excited to dive back into this world in this series. So this is going to be on my February TBR. Then I have two very exciting books on my Kindle. I got my very first two ARCs ever. I've never gotten advanced reader copy books before these two. The very first advanced reader copy ARC book that I ever got was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. It's by V.E. Schwab. I'll put a little screenshot of it here. That is going to be the next book that I read after my book club ones. I will be reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This is one of my most anticipated reads for 2025. When I tell you I screamed when I found out that NetGalley was gonna let me read that as an advanced reader copy. Freaked out, because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is my favorite book of all time. It's a soul book for me, and I'm very, very excited to read another V.E. Schwab book, and that is going to be the next book that I read after my book club ones in February. The other book that I'm going to be reading is called Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I have it downloaded right over here. I will be reading that in the month of February as well. That is my second ARC that I got for the month of February. Both books I am so excited for, so I can't wait to dive into those on my Kindle this month. Last book for my February TBR. This is a lofty ambition. We'll see if I can finish this in the month of February. Might be pushed to March, but this is my little book case or book carrier. I don't know, but it does hold close to a thousand page. What? It does hold close to 1,000 pages. What? That still doesn't make sense. This holds a 1,000 page book, which is pretty impressive in my opinion. So this is Kingdom of Ash. It is a 1,000 page book. This is the last book in the Throne of Glass series. I don't know if I'm mentally and emotionally prepared to read this because I don't want the series to end. So I'm kind of sad, but I'm excited to read this because I want to see what happens and how we're going to finish off the series, but I'm also really sad and scared. And then I have my tabs ready to go for that. I use these tabs from Amazon. So these tabs I think will go nicely with the cover. Isn't that pretty? So that is my last read that I'm hoping to get to in the month of February. I would love to know what books you read in the month of January and what ones you have on your February TBR. And that is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day or night wherever you're watching from.